guys. I realize I haven't been on very much in a couple weeks. Just been a little crazy. I think I said with my job, we started a new computer system and it's been a little nuts. But I wanted to come on since tomorrow is St. Patrick's Day and talk a little bit about what that means when you're pagan. Because for a long time, I refused to say like St. Patrick's Day because there is a whole bunch of misinformation out there about St. Patrick and the fact that he drove the snakes out of Ireland. And a lot of people say that the snakes were actually pagans. In doing a whole bunch of research about that, because as a pagan I try to be informed, what I found out was that's not true. That is kind of some myths that were created after St. Patrick died. In fact, over 100 years after he died. So let me just start by reading a little bit about from an article that I found about, let's see, 2012, I think. 2013 by the time I found it. And it's from a blog called The Wild Hunt. And I will put the original, actually I'll put this year's article, you know, the link in the down bar here. Because this is the first place that I really found all the information kind of put together. And every year this blog reposts their original blog, which was from one of the original creators. His name was Jason Pitzel Waters. And he wrote an article that was called St. Patrick, Druids, Snakes, and Popular Myths. Give me 1 second, sorry. There's a thing in the middle of my forehead, but it was on my phone. Annoying. So, anyway, every year as March approaches, and even as March leaves, this article is read and reread again and again. St. Patrick's Day is coming up this Saturday. So they revisit, they repost the article and add anything new that has come about since then. So tomorrow is St. Patrick's Day, a yearly holiday celebrating Ireland's favorite patron saint. While it's a big event in Ireland, and it used to be a very solemn occasion in Ireland, in America it's a green-dyed bacchanal where everyone is Irish for a day and gets drunk and drinks green beer and says they're Irish for the day even if they aren't. And all that is fun, and I'm not saying you can't do that. I do some of that. I like to go out to my local pub and get my green glass, and that's great. What I have turned this into for me is just a celebration of my Irish heritage, because I have some Irish heritage. But even if you're not Irish, it's a fun day to celebrate, and that's okay. This just gives you a little more history, because I know as a new pagan especially, people, like if I posted at first Happy St. Patrick's Day and stuff, I remember back in the old days, people saying stuff to me like, how could you? You say you're a pagan and you celebrate St. Patrick's Day. To me, it's celebrating my Irish heritage, and this kind of just brought that up. This helped me to know what to say to people when they said that. So the theory, just in case you haven't heard it, the theory is that St. Patrick drove out all the snakes from Ireland. And I, being a young person before I became a pagan, I never really thought about it as anything but the snakes. But apparently, a story came out that it was the pagans, that he had converted everyone to Christianity, and he drove out, he murdered all the pagans, or drove them all out and kicked them out of Ireland. That's the story that has arisen. But it didn't come about until 100 years at least after St. Patrick died. And this is the proof of how that happened. So, so it's like a cultural genocide. So, of course, when I heard that, I thought, oh my gosh, I can't celebrate this holiday. How horrible. It's not true. The idea is based on a theory that the snakes, which St. Patrick, between 387 and 461 CE, allegedly drove out of Ireland in the 5th century, that they are actually a symbol for the Druids and their religion. This is not a far-fetched idea, considering that the serpent is a common symbol for the Christian devil. Additionally, according to science, there weren't any real snakes in Ireland at that time. In fact, there haven't been snakes in Ireland for over 8,500 years. That's true. The Ice Age performed the reptilian eviction, or the slaughter as it were, not St. Patrick. So because Ireland is an island, there's no snakes. Therefore, the offending serpents had to be something other than actual snakes. And many modern pagans have taken this snake as druid metaphor to heart. For example, Isaac Bonewitz, which I have a few of his books, and I really like his books, called the All Snakes Day, and penned songs for calling the return of the snakes. Unfortunately, none of that is true. The hagiographies of St. Patrick's did not include this particular miracle until quite late, relatively speaking. His earliest hagiographies are from the 7th century, whereas this incident doesn't turn up in any of them until the 11th century. St. Patrick's reputation. Am I shaking the camera? Sorry if I was. I'll try not to. St. Patrick's reputation as the one who Christianized Ireland is seriously overrated and overstated, as there were others that came before him and after him, and the process seemed well on its way until at least a century before the traditional date given as his arrival, which is 432 CE, because Irish colonists, yes, you read that right, in southern Wales, Cornwall, and elsewhere in Roman and sub-Roman Britain, had already come in contact with Christians and carried the religion back with them when visiting home. So this whole idea about St. Patrick not actually driving the snakes out, there's another thing that they reference. It's a television special, which was on the Smithsonian Channel in 2014, which I will also link in the down bar. It's a very short, just little snippet. Called Sacred Sites Ireland. It's a documentary where the filmmakers interview several scientists and Celtic scholars who all agree with Lupus. St. Patrick neither drove out snakes or snakes, nor did he single-handedly convert Ireland's pagans to Christianity. According to these experts, it was actually Halley's Comet that evicted the metaphoric snakes. So, also Ronald Hutton, who is a great historian and author, historical author. I have a couple of his books about pagan Britain. He wrote a book called Blood and Mistletoe, The History of Druids in Britain. He noted that many of the details surrounding St. Patrick's life and his work were changed and even fabricated hundreds of years after his death. So, and he said the importance of Druids encountering Patrick's missionary work was inflated in later centuries under influence of biblical parallels, and that Patrick's visit to Tara was given a pivotal importance that it never possessed, if it ever occurred at all, to suit later political preoccupations. The only appearances of Druids in documents attributed to Patrick himself occur in some that are generally thought to have been composed after his death. So all of this is just not true. The rest of Patrick's hagiography has him dueling Druids right and left, killing those who oppose him with callous righteousness. So why would this study suddenly get cryptic about him driving the Druids out? Every other page was proclaiming it loudly. Now, this particular tidbit is suspiciously exactly the same story as a story from the life of a French saint and was always meant to be literal. The earliest reference that this author, this Jason Pitzel-Waters, found to have anyone thought the snakes meant druids was from 1911. It's in the fairy faith in Celtic countries from 1911, where someone states that he believes, based on a story, that because certain place was where the druids' last stronghold was, and it was also the place where St. Patrick drove the snakes, that the snakes must represent the druids. But it's just faulty logic. So it didn't happen. So the one thing that this article does do also that I like a lot is it kind of talks about you want to celebrate something about Irish heritage on this day. There's a couple other things that you can do. And the one that I try to hang on to, first of all, like I said, I just celebrate it as a day to honor my Irish heritage. There's nothing wrong with that. Either way, there were druids in Ireland, and I happen to celebrate that. There's also the story of Chulainn. Chulainn. I can't say it in the Irish brogue that I've heard all the stories in. But I would like to also put in the down bar just the story of Chulainn. And it's a story of the greatest Irish hero, mortal hero. And I will include the story. It's one of my favorite Irish stories. And it talks about, actually, when Chulainn died, he got stabbed with a special spear that Queen Mabe had given to her daughters to fight Chulainn. And he got stabbed with one of them on the last try. The first one killed one of his friends, and the second one killed something else, I can't remember. And the third one stabs him, and he walks all the way up to this lake, ties himself to a standing stone so people won't know he's dead. And after 3 days, he dies. Once he dies, it takes a long time. And actually, the goddess Morrigan, who was, what was she called at that time? Bard or Barda, B-A-R-D-H, I think, the goddess Bard. Nobody knows that he's dead until the goddess Bard, which is Morrigan, turns into a black raven and lands on his shoulder. Then everybody knows that he's dead. It's a great Irish story. But it happens, there's some history around that date, the 17th of March, is the first time that he says he's going to fulfill the prophecy that he heard, that whoever takes up arms for the first time on that day would be famed forever. He didn't realize that the prophecy also said that you would have a short life. But he says, that's okay. I'll take that on. It'll be great to be known anyways. So, some great Irish heritage kind of story days. I hope everyone enjoys it. Tries not to worry about all the crap surrounding, you know, stuff that we weren't there and we don't remember. We can honor and celebrate the heritage anyways. And if you need to, you know, pull something into it historical, start reading about Chulainn, which is a great story. I love the old bardic stories. I love to listen to. If you go on YouTube and look up bard stories, there's all kinds of, or Celtic Ireland stories or myths. There's all kinds of stories on there. But I will put down the link to the one I'm talking about Chulainn. It's a great Irish story. So I hope you all have a great St. Patrick's Day, Chulainn Day, Irish Heritage Day, however you would like to celebrate it. Go out and have a green beer. Kiss somebody who, you know, isn't Irish or is Irish, or pretend you're Irish. Paint your face green. I don't care. Just have a good day and celebrate the fact that, you know, it's a good day and we're all alive. Blessings. I'll see you guys probably tomorrow. Today's Friday for our wand study.